Next, make a fist and squeeze it 5 times or so. That movement is comparable to the blood pumping action of your heart. All of our body components cannot operate without the heart. The circulatory system's main organ is the heart. It is a muscular organ in charge of blood circulation throughout the body. Transport of gases and nutrients to and from the various bodily sections is made possible by the blood pump. Every creature has a different heart, yet they all serve essentially the same purpose. The hearts of animals, birds, and humans are composed of 4 chambers. Reptiles have 3 chambers, whereas fish have 2. We shall be concentrating on the human heart in this fact file. Your left hand should be placed on your chest. Your heart's approximate position is where your palm is located. It sits somewhat to the left of your lungs, in between them. Our right lung is somewhat larger than the left because of its placement as well. Our rib cage shields our lungs and heart from harm. It requires protection since it is encircled by other organs, such the lungs, which are always contracting and relaxing. Its covering, the pericardium, gives this muscular organ a frictionless environment. Three layers make up the heart wall: the epithelium, myocardium, and endocardium. Beneath the pericardium lies the epithelium. The epithelium serves to shield the heart from harm and even makes sure that cardiac cells grow normally, much like the pericardium does. The layer of muscle cells that make up the heart's walls is called the myocardium. Between the epithelium and the endocardium is where you may find this. The heart's mass, or this layer, is what causes the heart to contract. The endocardium, the deepest layer, is situated underneath the myocardium. The smooth, thin membrane called the endocardium is responsible for the heart's glossy inside. In addition, the endocardium contributes to the development of the valves that stop blood from flowing backward. As previously said, biology informs us that the human heart consists of 4 chambers. The left atrium, left ventricle, right atrium, and right ventricle are these 4 chambers. The left part is made up of the left chambers, and the right part is made up of the right chambers. The reception chambers are called the atria, plural of atrium. The pumping chambers are the ventricles in the meanwhile. The ventricles' walls are thicker than those of the atrias because of this functional distinction. Receiving and pumping blood that contains carbon dioxide and is deoxygenated is the responsibility of the right portion. Conversely, the left side is in charge of taking in and pushing blood that contains oxygen or oxygenated blood. There are structures called valves that are located between the heart's 4 chambers and the blood arteries that attach to it. Blood will flow from one direction alone thanks to these valves. The tricuspid valve is located between the right atrium and the right ventricle. By doing this, blood cannot return from the right ventricle to the right atrium. The pulmonary valve, which is situated between the pulmonary artery and the right ventricle, is another. The right ventricle and the lungs are connected via the pulmonary artery. This valve thereby stops the right ventricle from experiencing backflow. The third valve is sometimes referred to as the bicuspid or mitral valve. This can be seen between the left ventricle and left atrium. Backflow to the left ventricle is stopped as a result. The aortic semilunar valve is the last but certainly not the least. This valve is situated between the aorta and the left ventricle. It stops blood from returning to the left ventricle from the aorta. Interesting fact, the sound the physicians are hearing through their stethoscopes is produced by the valves opening and shutting. You can hear this sound if you have a stethoscope at home or at school. Just keep an eye out for the looped-up sound. The closure of the mitral and tricuspid valves produces the loop sound. The closure of the aortic and pulmonary valves produces the dub sound. These noises indicate that it is operating correctly. Recall that having our blood flow in a single direction is crucial. It's time to discover how blood flows through the heart and is disseminated throughout the body now that you have a better understanding of its anatomy. Blood may be moved to and from the body via the heart and the many blood arteries that are attached to it. The blood will take up carbon dioxide and give oxygen to the tissues and cells. Within the right atrium, the inferior and superior vena cava will drain this blood, which has lost its oxygen content. The blood that has lost oxygen will subsequently be drained to the right ventricle by the right atrium. Through the pulmonary artery, the right ventricle will subsequently pump blood to the lungs for oxygenation. In order to enable access into the lungs during this process, the pulmonary valve must be open and the tricuspid valve closed to prevent backflow to the right atrium. When blood that has lost oxygen enters the lungs, the pulmonary valve has to stay closed. The blood returns to the heart through the pulmonary vein once it has taken up oxygen from the lungs. The oxygenated blood will be drained to the left atrium via the pulmonary vein. The oxygenated blood will thereafter be drained to the left ventricle by the left atrium. The blood will subsequently be pumped to the aorta by the left ventricle. When this occurs, the aortic semilunar valve has to be open, and the mitral valve needs to close. To stop blood from returning to the left ventricle when oxygenated blood leaves the body and goes to the aorta, the aortic semilunar valve must be closed. All areas of the body will receive oxygenated blood from the main artery, the aorta. The blood that has been oxygenated will absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen into the cells and tissues. As long as our hearts are beating and we are alive, the entire process will happen again. The heart is a vital organ that has been pumping blood since before we were even born and will continue to do so for the duration of our lives. For this reason, maintaining its health is crucial. Even though the majority of US are born with healthy hearts, our lifestyle choices can have an impact on how well they work. Maintaining physical fitness is crucial for the heart as well as the muscles that enable movement. The heart is in charge of removing waste from our cells and supplying them with nutrients and oxygen again. Our hearts will be exercised by activities that cause our bodies to use more oxygen than is necessary. It will boost our heart's effectiveness. Thus, be careful to engage in physical activities like leaping, jogging, and even dancing. Eliminating fatty meals is another action we may take. Our blood arteries may get clogged with fat crystals. This accumulation of fat will obstruct a normal blood flow and perhaps block our blood vessels. This will prevent some bodily areas from getting oxygen and other nutrients, as well as the removal of waste products like carbon dioxide. We can do a lot more to maintain the health and happiness of our hearts. We may keep our hearts healthy by reading publications and paying attention to medical specialists. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more educational content.